report, and I posted mine later this afternoon, so I don't know if anyone's had a chance to sort of peek through it. But I think what we need to do is go through it, read it, and at least synthesize it, because I've got some data in there, but mostly just pictures and sort of anecdotal components. And Andrea has a nice bullet pointed layout of all the components of what she was handling. I think just sort of
we didn't call the meeting to order, just so you know.
That is a good point. Thank you. Good point of order. Let's call that meeting to order. How about that?
Sounds good.
And is there a second?
Second.
Yep. All in favor? Aye. And I didn't take care of the minute business, so let's do that as well. Minutes from the last meeting, which was, I think,
April 14th.
14th, right? Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns on the minutes? I'll entertain a motion. Let's move by Andrea, seconded by Chris. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. That takes care of that business. Thank you, Andrea, for doing some housekeeping. Okay. So where I was jumping in is thinking that while I wrote mine out, and can somebody pull that up? We could just pull up the, I have it. Let's see, share screen.
Yeah.
All right, let's share this. Okay, where am I? Where am I here? Come on. Oh, that's not it. I have real trouble getting into that Google Doc. Can you just, can one actually bookmark it? Is that how that works?
Yeah, you can, let me see, where is mine? That is the wrong Google Drive.
There it is.
You can bookmark so it should, wait, do you have a Google account?
I did set one up today.
Okay, so it should like show up in your drive in your shared with me, and it's the Main Street Noise and Traffic shared folder. We probably should organize it a little better, but
right. So can we all see that? Why isn't it? There we go. Got it, everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So in reading through yours, Andrea, I thought it was great. And I sort of did the same sort of thing as I kind of listed, and I'll show you but I think maybe we should just start with our recommendations first, because in reading through yours and reading through mine, it's like blah, 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 and that's how they're going to read it, because the selectmen have a lot to read. So I think what we may want to do, and I guess I'm throwing this out as a question. Does it make sense to consolidate all our concerns into A, B, C of what we recommend, and then give this as background stuff?
Right.
As opposed to the opposite of making an argument and then having a conclusion and convincing them.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I think too that's what happened in the road safety audit. It's 64 pages long, and it was a lot of like layout of information saying like, this is the background, and then these are the recommendations we recommend for near term, short term, and long term. And and you're right, like it sort of got lost. So I think you're right. Maybe we have our recommendations and then the supporting documentation for it.
Yeah, I think what you've written here is spot on. some of it is that I read was sort of like, okay, we'd like to see a crosswalk here, here, and here. And I think, again, that's going to be lost. And it's also going to get people, it can be construed as someone saying, okay, now I got to go get this and I got to get that. I believe we need to keep it simple to what we wanted to do. We have to work within the confines of what we have presently and look to improve those and not go beyond that in terms of saying, well, we also want to install this or install that. I think the only thing that would be new in terms of what they have in terms of a construct would be what I was handling and pushing the edges out of the village zone. And I think that's because there's probably some rationale as to why they put that there that I'm not, that I'm missing or we're missing, you know? So given that, Andrea, because I know, again, you're on you got 20 minutes. I'd like you to give me, out of what you pulled, the 3 or 4 top recommendations you have to the selectmen. If you were presenting it right now.
All right. So, okay, so I guess the top things would be increasing the pedestrian crossing time at the intersection.
Okay.
To 30 seconds. Based on the gate speeds.
So 30 seconds at the light.
Yeah, based on 2 things that I wrote in there is ambulation gate speed.
And the gate speed, yep.
Which is based on the walking distances, which I guess we didn't get documented when we were out. We only got 1/4 of them documented. And the actual use of the crosswalk, which is most people cross on the hypotenuse. And we're saying we don't want to do, the DOT is saying we don't want people to do that. We don't want to encourage it. So what we're saying is, okay, well, this is how it's used. So if you actually just increase the crosswalk time, people could cross on the L instead of the hypotenuse. Boom, we've taken care of so many safety issues.
And I'm sorry, just again, a little very sidetracked. It is your experience, you see people walking on the hypotenuse? Because I rarely see that. I don't know what you see, Glenn, but I rarely see anyone. I see all those kids at Kent School waiting, and then they all cross like ducklings.
Yeah,
I'm not always there, so.
Tonight I had my stopwatch and I was going back and forth, and a group of Kent students went right across diagonally.
Okay, 2 to 1. You guys got it. I like it.
Saw it tonight.
Okay, so
I mean,
that's
part
helpful.
of that is, I will admit, I'm one of those people. You know,
Okay, well,
I don't
that's
always
okay.
walk directly. I do like the curve to be like, hey, look,
Yep.
I'm doing both of these ways.
So I guess just to
yeah.
follow that up, it's whether they're actually walking on the hypotenuse or they're actually doing an arc, it's still the same thing. It's not walking within the course. Okay, good. All right, let's move on. That's great. Thanks.
Okay, so
all right, 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it could be like 28 or something.
Whatever. I think let's go for 30 and see if we have to horse trade.
Right. Okay, so then you said, okay, so if I want to focus just on like what is the easiest thing to handle, we're not like reconstructing crosswalks, it would be to increase safety at the intersection with stop here on red and yield signs.
Okay, stop and yield signs on red.
Yep, so the yield would be for the right turn from southbound 341 to westbound, southbound 7 to westbound 341. And then the stop here on red to keep the intersection clear for turning trucks and equipment would be for all the other directions, because currently the only one that's there is westbound 341.
Right. Okay. All right, got that.
And
You talked about two other things. You talked about lighting up the walkways that I recall. You also talked about signage being inconsistent. Now, that's also going to follow under what Glenn's talking about, but you know,
Right.
the inconsistencies. So those are the two other things I picked up from running
Yeah.
through yours.
So when we talked at our last meeting, we said, let's just ask for everything. If they're going to
Yep.
put the sidewalks in, we have to do this. So that was where I put the other crosswalks that do not exist but should, those 5.
Yep.
But if we want to look at like what's actually going to get done, the crosswalk safety would be visibility options. So blinking crosswalks that flash all the time and they're like solar powered, or a push button to make a flashing crosswalk signal. I did not find very many of those in Connecticut.
Yeah.
What I did find is flags for pedestrians to wave.
Yeah.
And there are mixed results of those, but in 2014, they implemented them in Bridgeport, which is obviously it's the biggest city in Connecticut. So not really Kent level stuff, but could be useful. We had them when I lived in St. Augustine, Florida. So.
Well, as I'd mentioned, I've seen them and they're kind of kitschy, kind of like, hey, look, I grab a flag, how fun. But it reminds people that they have to actually alert motorists.
Yeah, and that's part of that new law that DOT put it, or lawmakers put about DOT, is saying like you have to indicate that you're crossing in some way. So we don't have flags yet, so I take my husband's orange hunting cap around.
Yep, flag it around. Okay. All right, so good. So 30 seconds at the light, stop, yield on red, crosswalks and pedestrians flags or some sort of lighting up of it. Anything else?
I guess, I mean, if in a perfect world we would have more crosswalks.
Yeah, I think we
I
can mention that. I just don't think I know that already that has been addressed a number of times. And I don't think we're going to help the selectmen in their argument by getting bogged down in something that just can't be done.
Okay. I just put it in because my notes from the last meeting said ask for everything.
I know, I saw that. The one thing that I didn't see, which we danced around a little bit, but Ira has talked about it, and they do it in Salisbury, is in the crosswalks or before the crosswalks, do we want to put those standing signs? Oh, do we,
Yeah.
So we can recommend that because they used to be there. We could also recommend that the town take the responsibility of bringing them in and out or leaving them there. Salisbury leaves them there overnight, as I've mentioned before. I see a major liability because if somebody were to smoke one of those and get it under their tire and crash into something and get harmed or hurt, it is definitely going to be on the town because those are supposed to be by DOT rules pulled in and out. So I think if that's something which I believe most motorists, local people, when I was talking to them and I was a selectman, they were kind of frustrated that they were taken off the table. But many of them, when you told them about the insurance issue, they got it. Glenn, what's your thought on something like that primarily it's for the crosswalks?
It's for the crosswalks. No,
it's what they're designed for.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Should we put that on the list?
I think so.
Andrea, you agree?
I think it's a good thing to have on the list. I didn't put it on because I wasn't sure, like what you said with the insurance, like what really was going to come of it. But it's obviously important and helpful. It just adds a lot of like man hours to town stuff.
Well, that's what we're asking the selectmen to undertake, is those man hours.
Okay.
Or person hours nowadays.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else in that sort of crosswalk light concept that you had?
No, I looked up some of the rules about it, like saying that, pedestrians have the responsibility to only walk in the in the crosswalk, but then it also says, if the pedestrian began crossing during the walk signal, they have the right of way over all cars, including those turning right on red until they complete crossing. But the way it's set right now, because it's so short, there's like, it starts flashing after 4 seconds. Like there's barely enough time to even get in when it's on the actual walk. So I think that's a big reason to increase it, but it would be a question for, you know, is that really what the law says? That's what I found on DOT's like pedestrian website, but it wasn't
well,
in the other
I don't
packet
think
of information.
I don't think we have to justify to the selectmen our recommendation, other than the
Okay.
fact that we are finding that two things: one, improper crossing, and two, not enough time, because so people are taking the hypotenuse because there's not enough time to do it. So if DOT doesn't want the hypotenuse, which we understand, they need to increase the time. And why not increase it to a point where it makes sense?
Right. Okay, perfect.
All
Then
right.
that's it. I think that's my,
Okay. That's great. Thank you. How do I get out of here? Let me just do this. Let's see. Noise. Walk around. Okay, so basically mine was, oops, what did I do here? There we go. I'm gonna get out of there. So I basically started the preamble with the concept of you know, our challenges, the things that are in front of us, and a lot of it, you know, is pretty basic stuff. We know that the traffic laws aren't being obeyed, but we have to deal with the drivers at some point. But really, what we're trying to do is focus on the issues, and I call out DOT and the state police in terms of those who are overseeing that, and really said the main thrust of what we're trying to recommend at this point is DOT focused and not traffic enforcement, but more just traffic sort of design and flow. And so what I did is I just said, you know, and I took this from my perspective of over 30 years knowing town, and I was actually quite enlightened when I started thinking about what used to be here and what is here now. Just the growth of places like Kent School. Kent School never used to, the kids used to walk into town, go to the bakery and leave. Now the kids come into school and then they go all over. I mean, they're just everywhere. Actually, I had the situation today where I was coming over the bridge and I saw 3, 4 young women coming from Elizabeth Street, hiding behind the hedges. Not hiding, but you know, they're hidden by the hedges as they walk down. So I see them and I stop, and a guy's coming at me, and I give him a flash just so he knows, but he ignores it. And these young women step onto the sidewalk. They weren't on the crosswalk yet, but I knew what they were doing. And he went right through, right by them, right as they were standing right at the edge of the crosswalk. And then he went around me to get up on Elizabeth Street. Not in front of me, because he had no room to get in front of me. He had to go behind me. So, and the pedestrians were a little confused as to what was going on, because I see one guy stopped and another guy coming down. And so, again, a lot of this is anecdotal that we'll have to bring to the selectmen. But I just broke it down into the 30 years where our population is really heavy tourism, heavy school with Kent School and Marvelwood. The Kent School Marvelwood sale happened within the last 30 years. And in that is changed the dynamics of what goes on. And of course, transplants and stuff like that. And I've just listed, and you can see the difference of between 8 food establishments and 12. And I've also called up the fact that if you look at the historic development, right at the traffic light, where the big snarl happens and where all the crossing happens, is actually a historic phenomenon and issue, because all those buildings are smushed right together, and it's it's very charming and very alluring to be able to go 1, 2, 3, 4, as opposed to standing at, you know, at the pharmacy and looking down and seeing big green grass till you hit Webster Bank. And so because of that, that really exacerbates the problem at the light, and it leads to arguing, you know, the argument that Andrea's making of why we need the light to be longer and have to be clearer at the signs at there. And then what I did is I just said our recommendations. Again, I was focused on the village expansion. And so I just put the pictures in and talked about the straightaways, and then, you know, on all of these. And then what I did was, I sort of took a map, tried to do it in my less than perfect graphic way, and I don't know why I can't get it. There it is. And I'm trying to basically show, I don't know why it won't hold. Come on, hold. All right, well, anyway, you can see it when it is, but basically what I did is I showed where our existing green is where we would like to expand it, and yellow is what it is actually now. And so the you can see, do a little bit of, I want to move it, we want to move it further out before Scotticoke Road, I think is appropriate. I know it's a little hard, but let's see. So right now, the speeding zone is right here before that corner. That's where the first sign says, and it's 35 miles an hour. And I think it's appropriate to bring it before you hit that flats right before the hockey rink and the fields. You guys may not remember this, or Andrew, you certainly wouldn't. A guy came out on a motorcycle, made this corner, and some guy was pulling out of Kent School, pulled all the way out, and the guy went right over his hood. I don't know if it was a fatality, but it certainly was ugly.
Wow.
And people pull in and out of that hockey rink. And so I think there's some logic and argument to expanding that. Same thing as we all know about south on Route 7. We've talked about that ad nauseum. Coming in on this side, it makes sense because right where it is presently, it's almost directly across from the transfer station entrance, the Kent entrance, and of course the town garage, and then you got the firehouse and then houses. So I think, and I timed to not, I watched myself and I also watched others that I was driving behind, because what happens is when you come into anywhere of these towns, you're going 40, supposedly. Most people are going 50. And when they come in, they dock it down to like 45 in most situations. But still, they're coming in hot at 45, and they're supposed to slow down to 30 or 35, and it just doesn't translate until they get into heavier traffic. So they're not really, they're not anticipating all of the entry points that are happening faster. So anyway, that's sort of what I did, and you guys look at it and then maybe just go and take a look at yourselves what you think about in the field. Again, this is a recommendation. Who knows if DOT can actually expand? I don't understand or know really why or how the logic is, but.
So when we look at 341, I think something that could be as part of this. So yes, out past the school, because there's the like the school zone kind of situation that Glenn was working on, but also the right there. So it says like it changes from 40 to 35, and then at Skiff Mountain at the intersection, like it has the yellow warning sign that says like there's, and it says it suggests you go 25 because of that intersection for Skiff Mountain. And because of that, like to me, if you're warning because of that intersection, you should be going 25. You should be going 25 the entire way because of all the intersections coming in and out of the hockey rink, the rest of the other side, the Kent School intersection, Elizabeth, both directions. It just doesn't make sense to say like, oh, it's 35, but we recommend you go 25 because of Skiff Mountain Road intersection.
Right, this is where you're talking about, actually, I don't know if you can see it, but right
Yeah,
here is where that
Yeah.
sign is. I'll move you guys a little.
and it's the recommendation because it's yellow, so it's not a law. So it's recommended warning, a caution. You should only go 25 because there's this intersection up here. But then the white law, like this is the speed limit sign immediately behind
It's
it,
right,
10
these
feet.
two, they're incongruous.
Yeah, it says
Yeah.
it's okay. The law is 35. So to me, if if DOT was saying we're warning you, you should cautionarily, you should go only 25. It should be 25 the whole way.
I agree, and I think that, I think, Glenn, I'll turn it over to you, because I think what we were talking about is setting that, or resetting, or hopefully getting a different speed limit.
Yeah, I'll just speak, and sorry I didn't get a chance to write up anything, but you know, I can do that after this. But definitely those signs. I mean, I like you, Chris. I just took pictures. I didn't pop them in here, but that's the biggest inconsistency is going east on 341, and you see that 25-mile-an-hour sign, and then literally, you know, 25 yards later, there's that 35-mile-an-hour sign. Those got to be flipped. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. But even, you know, even more than that, I mean, there are two schools there. There are no school signs. You know,
Right, exactly.
School zone ahead, school zone ends. I mean, that's the, you know, I know Kent Center School is not right on the road, but you know, those students are still using those roadways, walking, but definitely for Kent School, at least.
Right, you know, you're right. I don't even see, when you approach on 341 past
None.
Elizabeth Street, there's nothing that says even school area. You know,
Okay.
sometimes there are places that say school area.
There is no school sign at all. There's that
Mm-hmm.
crosswalk sign, and that's about the closest thing there is. So at the very least, you know, those two signs should be switched, and then I think there's got to be school zone signs. Now, where they go is another issue. I mean, I don't know. I've been looking at the guidelines here for school zone signs, but I think, you know, one should, you know, going eastbound, school zone ahead by the hockey rink.
Yep, I agree.
You know, and then you know, westbound, you know, school zone ends, you know, when you're going in that direction. That makes sense to me. Where the other two should go, I don't know. I mean, should they go a little bit past the bridge and just include Kent School, or should that include the crosswalk for those folks going to Kent Center School? Should that start more by the you know, by the churches? I think it should be by the churches, personally, but
So I'm sorry, I'm not following you. You're saying what should be by the churches? Another
So-
posted sign?
so yeah, so going westbound on 341,
Yeah.
if you you know, you're going straight there, and there should, I think, be a school zone sign, because Kent Center School is nearby, and then right on top of that, you've got Kent Schools, you know, and with all these students walking around.
So could we make the argument that the school zone starts where you were saying, somewhere around there, and ends
Yep.
down near the hockey rink, and basically just a big school zone? Because
Yes.
a school zone's usually what, 20?
I'm looking at the
I don't know what that usually is, but there must be a classification that they have at DOT as to what the speed should be in a school zone.
It depends on the level of the school. Like for elementary schools, it's lower than high schools.
Right.
And there's
So
there's no speed limit here on this one document in the drive. I've been looking at this. It has where sign should be, but it doesn't have actual miles per hour.
Right. So to sort of coagulate this, one way or another, if we're going to push the village zone out, if that's what our recommendation is, what do we believe that 25 should be that speed limit? And I think we've had that consensus before, but if that's the case, basically, if you look to this picture here to the left, right before Kent School, it should be school zone 25 miles an hour. And then that would introduce to everybody coming into the town at 25 miles an hour. Conversely, on the east side, the same sort of signage, fired up firehouse or some sort of, you know, activities got to require, I would think, slowing down to, again, the village speed limit of 25. The activity with South Commons and Kent Greenhouse coming up from the south also would warrant a 25-mile-an-hour zone. There's sort of less of an argument other than the new development that's potentially happening on the north side of Route 7 coming into town. But
Well, I think it's just congested. Like, I don't think we have to have, reading, what is it? It's like 160 page PDF, about the, about how speed limits get established. And there are a lot of, so I don't think we necessarily have to make a case about a specific, like, because the school's here, it's a school zone. I think we can make the case in general, based on what I read in that these are high traffic areas. There's on-street parking, which should slow down which is another consideration to slow down traffic. It's a high pedestrian. There are families. It's basically a neighborhood. You know, as much as nobody wants to admit it, it's essentially a neighborhood.
Yep.
And I did have some of the data from the tax assessor about like how many businesses and residences are in the village center. And that I think only helps our argument that these are busy, dense places, even though we're in a rural area, and that's why we should decrease the speed limit.
Yeah, I hear you, and I agree with your argument that we don't really need to, we have the evidence, one, and two, the recommendation is pretty logical. We just, maybe it doesn't fit into their data processing system, but I think if we make that argument, they can then say, okay, we get it, and then make the changes.
I can't speak for South Kent. Maybe I'll go to South Kent school tomorrow, but I don't believe there are any school signs near Marvelwood, and there are no school zone signs on 341. And if there are no school signs by South Kent, I mean, we have a lot of schools here. We need some signs.
Yeah, well, those two examples of South Kent and Marvelwood are on town roads and under the purview of the selectmen. They can do what they think is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm inclined to see, when you come into town where it says speed limit and that yellow sign coming in from the south, I'm inclined to have 4 of those on each of the points, each introducing the town and the village speed. And even if it said, welcome to the town of Kent, village speed 30 miles an hour or 25 miles an hour, we could then, there's a consistency there.
Yes.
But
so the reason there's not those signs on 341 is because you only have to do the warning of the speed limit dropping ahead if it drops 10 miles an hour or more. So it's dropping from 40 to 30 coming from the north and 45 to 30 coming from the south. But coming on 341, it's only going from 40 to 35. So you don't have to warn the drop because it's only 5 miles an hour, even though people are going 50 or more. So that's why the big yellow signs are only where on Route 7. And that's explained in that big PDF about how to make the speed limit.
By that logic, then if we are proposing 25 miles an hour, they would then install those there.
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. Any other thoughts on this? Glenn, did you get any anecdotal or any, not even anecdotal, did you get any ideas as to what other villages are doing, or how they're? I haven't paid attention. I should be, because I'm through them all the time.
No, but I will. I wasn't able to do that this time around,
Yeah.
but I shall do that. Yes.
I'll go. I got to go up to Sharon tomorrow. I will promise myself to be alert. Okay. All right. So I think we've got the recommendations of moving the village speed zone, as we will call it, out a little further, dropping the speed zone limit from 30 and 35 to a consistent 25. And then they can do the appropriate signage from where and how they have to post it. And then when you get to the crosswalk, the light and the crosswalks, we're looking at a 30-second time delay for crossing. And we're looking for specific signage that will for yields and turns on red, so that it also increases that safety. And then we're looking for what was the other thing? Crosswalk, some sort of a flag or lighting up of the crosswalks. They also have to be painted a lot more often, I think. But just general cleanup of that, and then also recommending a whatever those little warning things are. Those little, what are they called?
Placards?
They're like a pylon, or
Oh
you know
yeah.
what I mean? I don't know
A
what they call them.
bollard?
A bollard, I like it. Yeah, something. And so I think given that,
And some school zone signs.
and school, thank you, school zone, let me write that down.
I think
Right.
technically a bollard is like the concrete pillar that blocks
Yeah.
you from,
That holds it.
you
I
know,
thought
it's
it
like
was
the ones that block you from driving onto like bridges you're not supposed to drive on, or federal buildings or whatever.
Yep. Okay, so given that, why don't we all sort of read all these over? Glenn, if you could just throw something up in terms of your, thank you for reminding me of the school zone and the consistency there. And when you do that, just note that the different schools, you know, and
Should I write a separate document, or should we add to one document? I mean, how do we do this moving forward?
I think we could probably add, so read my sort of intro and then mess with it as you think
Okay.
is necessary and edit it. And then we can go into, I think we need to lead with the village zone, because that sort of gives the overview. And then I think we need to go to the speed limit within that village zone. And then we need to zero in on the crosswalks. We haven't really dealt with all the signs and the signage. I don't know if we need to, because to a degree, one, that's DOT's, you know, they do what they got to do. Number two, when the sidewalks are getting torn up, there's going to be, we'll maybe just ask the selectmen to be mindful of how those are placed and where they're placed. But I think that most people seem to, I mean, I know just myself driving down, there's just so much going on. Trying to read a sign is the last thing I want to do when I'm driving, especially past Giffords and Wilsons and all that. I think these components cover it, unless I'm missing something that you guys have seen.
So you've shared editing capabilities on your document here, on this document, noise traffic report. Should I just put my recommendations right on here, you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Work it around. I have no ego here. You guys can work it around. You can take it out. I don't really care. I think what's really important is to make sure we have one voice in terms of our concept of even in like the front in the introduction, just one voice. And then I think what would be good is, I find pictorially people get it way easier than just major bullet points. And so if you want to just take these and just copy them and do what you need to do. Andrea, maybe even I don't know, a video would be, maybe a little short video of people crossing might be appropriate. You know, something that's going to graphically catch the attention that this is what's going on. We all know what's going on. It's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get hurt at some point. And if we're aware of it and haven't done anything about it, well, shame on us. I don't know. I just,
We need
any of
like
that kind of idea.
we need like a town GoPro attached, like basically at the light at Vin's house, and like looking, like shooting the intersection, saying, "Look, this is actually how the intersection gets used. We're not crazy." Like,
Yeah, it's funny because I had a thought of that if you had a GoPro on and just walked down the street and just watched all the violations happening.
mhm.
I mean, I mean, come on, you've mentioned 6 or 7 of them. Glenn, you've seen 7 or
Yeah.
8 of them. I've seen a whole bunch. It's like, if we're all seeing them separately, it's a
Yes.
problem.
True.
Which is what we will say to them afterwards, is the next thing we need to tackle is either enforcement or we'll tackle education, because education is sort of a harder one, because I don't know whether I don't know what you do, but I'm sure there are lots of different ideas.
Do we have an idea when we are done with this report? Do we have an idea when we shall present to the Board of Selectmen? Do we have any, is this too early to ask?
No, it's not too early to ask. I'd say it's best if we could, we were thinking of March and we're now climbing into May, which is okay. It's appropriate and not unexpected. But I would say if we could get to the meeting, that 17th meeting that we usually don't, not the 17th meeting, why did I say that?
Oh,
the Thursday meeting that we don't meet typically would be a good one to be able to present to them, which is the third, isn't it the third Thursday?
I'm going to check it out here. Let's see. It is
Yeah, the third Thursday of the month is the late one.
third. That's the late one. Yes. So
And
that
what
means
day is that?
That's the 19th of May.
Okay, so if we could shoot for the 19th, I think that it would be good for us to get on the agenda, or you can get us on the agenda for that date, or Joyce can. And we'll just report what we've got.
So we're going to plan to meet Thursday, May 5th and Thursday, May 12th. Okay.
Yep. And again, hopefully they'll be short and sweet, because it's just tightening this up.
Yep.
And I think that's pretty straightforward.
Okay. I will still be out of town next week, but because they're on Zoom, I should be able to join.
Again, I get people are busy and we're rushing into the summer season stuff. So I think what we need to do is, it won't take long to run through this, edit it a little bit, tighten it up, and then go from there. So Andrea, if you want to take your 4 points and just sort of drop them in here.
Okay.
Are you out of town now?
No, I'm going to be out of town at 2:30 tomorrow morning.
Okay. Do you want me to take pictures of the crosswalks and the lights?
Yeah, that would be good. And if you can take measurements with your Rolly
Where the heck did those
meter.
go? I had.
I don't know. I was like,
notes.
you're the only one that had paper. So,
I wrote them
Very
down. I
official
thought I
looking.
wrote them in our list, and I did. I only wrote one. I think
Yeah.
the hypotenuse is the only thing I wrote, right?
No, you wrote the really long one from the gas station to the offset intersection that goes basically from like Vin's house to the St. Andrews.
Huh. Okay.
So I don't know why only that one, because we measured all of them.
Yeah, I know.
and
And I
then-
had
and we
I
even
found my
measured-
notes, and I'm like, can't even find it.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know, Chris, you're the only one that had paper. So I don't
That's
know.
true. I
And-
know.
And that we even measured like the non-existent crosswalk at JP Gifford. So we measured all kinds of things. I don't know. But if you could measure those, and then I can really prove with the
All right, so I'll get you
supporting
a
like gate speed.
I'll get you a picture of each of the sidewalks. I'll get you a picture of the light. And I will risk my life and limb and get you measurements.
Okay. Sounds good.
All
Well,
right.
you can just do it. You take measurements 17 seconds at a time. That's all the crosswalk time you have.
That's true. Poor Chris, he didn't make the time. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, concerns?
No, very good, very helpful. I like what you both
Okay.
wrote.
And if anybody, around town a lot, so if anybody needs pictures of something, let me know and I can go snap them and send them.
All right,
Enjoy.
great.
All
Thanks.
right, guys,
All right, thank you.
meeting adjourned. Thank you, Joyce, once again.
My pleasure.
All right, guys,
Good night, everybody.
bye.